Something that you may or may not know about me is that one of my hobbies is drawing. Well, more specifically, digital art. I started trying to learn how to draw more at around the 7th grade. Would you believe me when I say that the reason was because I was starting my first YouTube channel and I wanted to have a 2D avatar as my profile picture, like a bunch of other people I followed at the time? I guess YouTube kind of started my path in art, and I still don't know how to feel about that. I mean, as of now, it's still nothing too serious. I really just make a bunch of doodles on my iPad and occasionally post stuff on Twitter. But hey, I do like to think I made growth over the years, and I guess it's something to feel proud of. What the heck does that have to do with this video? Well, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, is a game all about art, and when I say that, I don't mean it's a simple art software, or a game where you simply make art. No, we got a full adventure game on our hands, and one that manages to express so much about the art world. It was created by... wow, only 5 people, with a Kickstarter that originally launched in 2019, and here we are in 2021, with the game being released to great acclaim by those who played it. For me though, the game was never really on my radar until recently. I got Chicory recommended to me from a friend, saying that this game was right up my alley. One weekend of playing the game later, and... yeah, they were right. I loved the heck out of this game and played it non-stop until the end. So hey, now that we're here, I have a ton to say about this game and I really want to recommend it to y'all. So here's an in-depth look at Chicory and why you should check it out. For the premise, there exists this magical paintbrush that's passed down from wielder to wielder in order to maintain all the color in this land. The current wielder is who the game is named after, Chicory, but we don't play as her though. Instead we play as her janitor. You can give them any name you want, but they hide that fact in a very clever way. You see, every character in this game is named after some sort of food, so the game asks you what your favorite food is, and that becomes their name. It's a really cute way, but canonically, their name is Pizza. Suddenly, as we're doing our job, all the color from the world suddenly gets wiped out in an instant. Going out to investigate, the brush is just lying there on the floor, so we decide to borrow it ourselves, since Chicory is nowhere to be found. As we figure out what's going on, it's immediately clear that there's some dark force that's overtaken the world, which is being created from many different points. And so begins our journey to learn more about this corruption, while Pizza continues to grow as a wielder in order to take on this force themselves. The structure's like a 2D Zelda game to compare it to anything. You'll have your story objective where you traverse to different points of the map as you go through challenges that each area offers, with tons of side stuff scattered all around the map. What makes this gameplay so special though is the brush itself. Preferably using a mouse, you have complete control of the brush and can paint in the world however you like. The environment will also be black and white by default, and it's up to you to color it in all on your own. Basically like a virtual coloring book, and man, it was so cool taking control of this for the first time. It's so much fun to go around these environments and paint them with the variety of colors you're given in each area. You can change the size of your brush, you'll find a paint bucket tool, and there's even an array of different styles you can make your brush in terms of the shape. With one you can design yourself. Each player is bound to have their own way of coloring the world. You can either be very precise with how you color the trees, grass, characters, or you can be like me, as in messy as heck, and paint very dumb things. This all makes Chicory one of the most visually fun games I've ever seen due to how creative players can be with coloring the world, but this brush isn't just for visuals. The brush is heavily incorporated into how you traverse this world and solve puzzles. There are many different types of objects the brush can interact with. You first start out with some simple concepts. There are plants that shrink when you paint them or become platforms that you can spring off of. But then there's bombs that go off when you paint them, weird bug creatures that follow wherever you paint, these little launcher things, platform switches, geysers. Point is, there's a lot the brush can do. It can start to feel like a point-and-click adventure game in that sort of way, since it will mostly be geared towards puzzle solving. You're never really going to be stuck on puzzles for a long time, but they'll keep your head thinking, and I was never really bored solving any of them. It's really all about figuring out how to get yourself from one point to another, using all your abilities to the fullest. There's also a ton of optional puzzles that let you stuff like different clothing to wear, and there's a lot of those, so there's never really a dull moment with getting collectibles. What will make getting collectibles easier over time as well are the different upgrades you'll get throughout this game that'll let you explore the world better. There's simple stuff like a jump, but you'll also be able to swim in your own paint, Splatoon style, which then evolves into being able to swim up walls and then actual water. It feels like a very natural progression of abilities that makes you feel like you're growing and becomes second nature to how you play, especially when you combine this with how the brush interacts with the world. When you're going through the more linear puzzle sections of this game that are tied to the story, that's when it really feels like all these mechanics come together in such a great way. You'll be scratching your head on how you're supposed to reach an area, and then it just clicks in your brain as you're leaping across clouds, swimming across walls, activating switches, setting off bombs, shooting yourself through geysers. It just all feels very satisfying. There's no life system or any sort of health meter, but it's unneeded. This game didn't need any sort of standard health and damage system to make it more interesting. It's already so much fun to traverse this world and see all it has to uncover. Well, I say that, but there are surprisingly a number of boss fights in this game that usually mark the end of a chapter. They're kinda like bullet hell moments where you keep attacking with your brush while dodging around a bunch of projectile-like attacks. One of my favorites is this one fight where your brush marks are mirrored on the opposite side of the screen, and you'll have to use those marks in order to damage the boss. It's a really cool way of testing your coordination. Dying doesn't really have much of a consequence though. As far as I can tell, you really only get sent back to the beginning of the attack pattern that you were in. But hey, a brutal difficulty ain't really a sell for this game. What is a big sell for this game though is the world itself. You can simply go from point A to B as you continue on, but as you start getting more abilities, you're also free to explore more areas on your own for side content. I already mentioned all the different outfits you can find, but there's also tons of lost kittens that you can find within trees and such. There's also a bunch of litter scattered around that you can trade for objects that you can place around for either your own decor or for side quests. The side quests you can do are nothing out of this world, but they can lead to some fun scenarios. I really liked this one where you had to discover who stole the artwork from this place, so Pizza tries their best to come across as this big brain detective, which all ends in a pretty cute and funny resolution. It's simply a joy to go around and interact with all the characters that you can come across. The designs are all fairly simple, but man are they really charming. There's so much personality to all the different NPCs and what they have to say. They don't feel like generic people to fill up space in a town. They've all got their own fun quirks to make them stick out. Even if you do end up getting too sidetracked and forget what you're supposed to do, this game has a really lovely hint system. Throughout the world of these phone booths, where you're able to call your mom, who you'll tell about your situation, and she'll do her best to give advice. It's a really wholesome way of giving info, and if that wasn't enough, you can let your dad have the phone, who will give you a very blatant breakdown on what to do. I'm talking, go 2 screens right and use X ability kind of help. This hint system is surprisingly one of my favorites I've ever seen in a game. It's given a fun context and lets you pick between 2 levels of help, either a reminder of your objective or a straight up walkthrough. It's great. And you know what else is great? This game's OST. It was composed by Lena Raine, who's worked on OSTs like Celeste. So yeah, I love her work and this continues to be no different in this game. There's a lot of beautiful tracks that are simply nice to listen to due to their instrumentation. There's a lot of focus on acoustic instruments, and the pacing of so many of these tracks are just so lovely. Like, listen to this for a bit. There's a nice playful feel to many of the tracks, but it also knows how to ramp up that intensity. A number of tracks, like the boss themes, will be really hard with the synths, making the OST so dang dynamic. Point is, this OST has a wide range, which is very important for what became one of my favorite parts of this whole game, the writing and characters. Now, I'm not going to go into massive spoilers, but if you already plan on playing this game, then it may be worthwhile going completely blind with the plot if you want. I think this game's story is more about the journey itself, so I think you'll be fine either way, but I'm just giving a heads up though, you know, just because I said I enjoy all the NPCs you can meet, but to start talking more about my favorite characters, we have our protagonist, Pizza. God, I know they're all named after food, but it's going to feel really weird talking seriously about a character named Pizza. Like, just bear with me! When we first begin as Pizza, they're super enthusiastic to use the brush, and have a clear-cut view of everything. They're excited to be wearing the brush, and really look up to Chicory, and doesn't have any of it when Chicory's mentor criticizes her. They simply want to make Chicory proud and be able to do good themselves. They've been spending their life working as a janitor, but now they're given this insane opportunity to hold a title that many have sought for and see as a noble duty. But as the game goes on, things start to change. This feeling of self-doubt starts to build up within them as they begin to properly understand what it means to be a wielder and the responsibility it carries. They start to doubt whether or not they're ready. They don't feel like someone like them is deserving of such a big role. The brush was just kinda handed to them after Chicory gave it up, and the illusions made from the dark thoughts of both Chicory and Pizza themselves only solidified this idea that they didn't deserve it. It's not like these thoughts just immediately go away after a single conversation either. They realistically progress with believing in themselves as a wielder, and in the end, it is something that they want. They've been living their life with no real direction, always doing things for others, which can be a good thing, but this is finally something that they can want for themselves, finally a chance to feel like someone special. To me, Pizza is someone who's lived life with little ambitions, no big plans, and has simply been living in a way to support those who are having more ambitious lives, like Chicory. They're a nice person, which means they can have really good relationships with people like their sister, but it also means that they have a hard time really saying no. An admittedly unfortunate crutch to always trying to be helpful to those around you. An unambitious life may seem like no problem to others, but it may also start to make you feel like a nobody, you know? Like, you have nothing more to look forward to in life as you go by, doing the same routines over and over, and in a world that in many ways pressures you to excel in many parts of life. It's easy to relate to Pizza and the kind of character they are. It's hard not to keep rooting for them throughout, and they're all around just a lovable protagonist. I think by the end though, my favorite character in this game ended up being who the game is named after, Chicory. She's built up by Pizza as being this extraordinary person and incredible wielder, but when we first meet her, she's completely down in the dumps, and lets us have the brush without a single care. She has no plans of being the wielder again, she doesn't care anymore, and has quit. Unlike Pizza, Chicory was a character driven by ambition. She dedicated her life to becoming a wielder. She wanted it more than anything, creating this high standard that she pushed onto herself for so long. She thought she had her whole life planned out, but things, unfortunately, just didn't work out. Chicory is honestly so painfully relatable from her background, but she also has a very mellow personality. While so many of the other characters have these insanely bubbly and eccentric attitudes, Chicory is much calmer and serious. I really love how Chicory is a character who ended up quitting their lifelong goal. In a way, she kind of feels like a failure, which is further perpetuated from how her mentor talks about her. Not saying I think she is one, but I think many of us, especially as we get older, have been in that situation of having life goals and dream jobs when you were younger, but then being hit with the crushing pains of reality. Eventually though, she becomes your mentor so that you can properly become the wielder, which gives such a great opportunity to flesh out her character. You can feel that sense of regret through a lot of her dialogue. If you thought Pizza sounded like they talk low of themselves, Chicory does that even more. She puts herself down a lot for not being a great wielder, and for not being as great as people like Pizza see her. She tried her best to be as perfect as possible, which led to her feeling very isolated, and was afraid of people finding out how much of an emotional wreck she really was. And I really do get that. Showing vulnerabilities can be a very scary thing, even to those you consider friends, but it's because she was able to open up, is how her relationship with Pizza strengthened. In your first interaction, she's barely familiar with you, and the first thing she calls you is the janitor, but as the game goes on, and she begins to mentor Pizza, you can feel this mutual respect being grown between the two. She starts to see Pizza as a valuable friend, and Pizza begins to stop putting her on a pedestal, and realistically understands the kind of person she is, and appreciates her for that. Pizza and Chicory got such good chemistry throughout this game. They both have different backgrounds in terms of ambitions and expectations, which leads to really honest conversations. Yeah, that's probably how I describe it. They're not very comedic, but they're not trying to be. It's two people earnestly sharing their experiences and how they feel with where they're currently at in life. Their exchanges feel really well thought out and genuine, which really feels like a breath of fresh air. Like, they don't need to plant in a bunch of jokes to make you care about them as people. They're just characters who are able to share their vulnerabilities. And with a game that looks as cutesy as this, I was honestly caught off guard. That's not to say the game doesn't have a sense of humor. It absolutely does with all the other back and forths you can have. I wasn't really bursting into laughter, but it kept a smile on my face. This game can get very real with its writing, but it's wrapped around this feeling of positivity and wholesomeness from the world itself. There will be many times throughout this game where you're asked to make art yourself. The brush works exactly as it does in the overworld, so that muscle memory with using it transitions very well. It's not really that complex when it comes to making art, but I think keeping things simple was for the better. I gave an earnest effort to paint what the game wanted me to, and you're also able to save the time lapses of your works as GIFs, which is a really cool touch. The characters as well really complement whatever you make, which does feel good. Even if you didn't make a masterpiece, you put in the effort to make something, and that in of itself is still worth celebrating. I brought up my history with drawing and art at the beginning because I believe this game really does capture ideas and themes that I think are important for anyone trying to get the most out of their creativity. Once you begin to start taking art more seriously, you begin to understand how much weight that really carries. You start to attach the quality of your art as part of who you are as a person. You start comparing yourself to others, which can lead to you thinking you're just not good enough. Finishing a piece is no longer, wow, I made a cool thing, but instead, you just end up focusing on all the little issues that you now see with it. I know I've certainly gone through these motions. I sometimes put myself down for all the skills I lack when it comes to drawing, beating myself down for how unsatisfied I can be with my art, how I'm not where I want to be. I can end up looking at others who make much better things than anything I can do, and feel bad about not being good enough. And honestly, all of this can get very self-destructive really fast. It can make you doubt your skills as an artist, and honestly, your worth as a person. But Chicory, through its brilliant gameplay that combines puzzle adventure mechanics with painting, the absolutely charming visuals, delightful music, and lovely story with extremely relatable characters, not only did it make it a game that I loved, but one that reminded me of the simple joys of art. In the end, it's still something to have fun with, and express the person you are. You don't have to constantly try to be like others. It's okay to just be your own artist, and enjoy that. Grow however you want, and feel better for it. Even if you don't have a background in art, this game is a really fun way of introducing the different sides of creativity, from doing things as simple as coloring inside the lines, to seeing the stories of those who seek self-betterment. You're bound to at least take something from your time with this game. There's probably a ton of different ways you can also interpret the game's story. There were a number of plot points and such I purposely left out because I still want to leave some aspects unspoiled for you, to experience yourself. And if you've already played the game, then I'd love to talk about all that stuff in the comments. Heck, maybe see how you interpreted the game. Chicory is simply a lovely video game. Some may be a bit skeptical or think this game looks too cutesy or something like that, but no, I'd highly recommend giving this game a shot. It's available on platforms like Steam and PlayStation. I have no experience with the PlayStation version, but I stuck with the PC because I figured a mouse would be better for what this game asked for, so yeah, that's just my personal recommendation. I hope I've convinced at least one person to try out this game, but if not, it is what it is. I'm just glad I was able to have such a great experience with this game, and I'm also glad that once again, I could share that experience with all of you here. Thank you for watching. Well, that seems like a good place to call it for this video. If you've enjoyed your time at all, subscribing, liking, sharing, all that junk would mean a lot to me. I've got a handful of videos I've done in the past talking about other cool indie games and other types of media if you're at all interested in that. I just really like talking about stuff I'm into. What can I say? With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna go do other stuff now, so yeah, take care.